This is Laura Vanderkam. I'm a mother of 5, an author.
And this is a mother of 3, a practitioner on the side. We are tutors and our families.
Worlds. Here we talk about how real women manage work for fun, from figuring out long-term career goals. Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. This is episode 245, which is airing in mid-April of 2022. Today, we're going to be talking about how to plan your summer. This is a perennial topic for Best of Both Worlds, planning our summers before, but we have new listeners coming in all the time, and many of us are a wee bit rusty, perhaps, in planning summers. Although 2021, we probably had to plan a lot of stuff for that summer. 2020, we may have planned the summer and then seen it all kind of go up in smoke. So, it's important to think through, for many people, the year change. And so you need to figure out how work and given these changed. Sarah, how is these going for you?
As you were talking about that, thinking, my kid's up for camp in 2020. Our camp forms don't get. So even though I tend to one thing, as you'll talk about, credit to use it. So anyway, we did plan our summer last year. People who kind of laid low. There's definitely some people I think who in a while and always tend to you do have to sign up for things before it feels like you should be having to think about it. And yet that's just kind of the way things that if you have certain camp kids to be able to participate, gotta jump on it as soon as those.
Yeah. So beginning of quintile 3.
My trigger is usually a thing from school when I just kind of jump on it, plan really, really far ahead and sleepaway camp. Then the fall, summer, prior plan to send their kids at the end of the summer because they have certain things like that. So to start early, and think about it right around when for me is quintile 2. Okay, any summer trips we want Airbnbs or VRBOs longer, and the actual summing, that's probably.
Yeah, this is one that a lot of people need first. There's obviously a million different camps out there. Some are more structured as child, or definitely more oriented. There's things to think about with. This is where I do it every year. Who or has not read my blog, what it is of summer. Down and the NAMP-aged children. So this year, children, the many camps, he'll be with our NAMP. But I start, with the earliest child to be out of school, so it's the same, but, when it would start slightly early. About the weeks, I just put whatever so for us, the first June 20 to 24 is June 27 to July 4 to 8, and so on. And then fill in wanting to attend. And I in January, because that's releasing their forms and their, catalogs for the summer. And we tend to do the same new ones year to year, but people really, the older kids what would you actually like if you want to do a culinary camp, to be in a theater production, robotics, but I need this. So I spend a fair amount of time on it. What kind of
Pokemon camp?
There is.
My kids know that such thing exists. I did, but I don't think we have.
Well, I had just seen social camps, when I was driving around stations around here, and I decided to try them out for 1 week doing things. Then we're still here in the future. But the reason to have this is sometimes you want to make sure for vacations the same week is obviously if you see that one child is at a sleepaway, then you have more available driving during the week. You generally don't to have 4 children in different camps at different places. A little bit crazy to pull off, but you could also sort of obstacle challenges where I already have to, as I agreed to do in the summer, of scheduled them. So I'm time and downtown, a camp nearby. I wound up on the original buy here for the child downtown. Husband could go to his office, pick him up between. Whereas if I hadn't put and then paid for one who's local, so a day with only one drive, drop that kid off early.
It can become really quick with camps because they can be sometimes they're at least in the same other within a district. Camps can be directions, and so that mistake. I think there was 1 week in 3 different locations, and I'll do that. So we've tried really hard. I think we do have 2 consolidated because there's not, trying to scatter directions.
Yeah.
Different same camp. So the soccer camp and an art camp, at least in my area.
No, if you can, I do feel require a lot of time. Every summer, it's like a thing of beauty. So frustrating when I create a sheet in January and then isn't anymore.
Do you have little the forms that you fill?
I don't, because once I have the spot, I figure find me. They're not going.
That is true.
I'll get forms are due and so I probably add on the list.
My brain that just likes putting things in.
So, I'm not, but there has to be a limit So what, well, why don't we take a quick break? Well, we are back talking about planning our summers. So, Sarah, do you guys have some travel planned for the summer?
We do and we don't. I have not. So I guess I'm breaking my very close and actually not hit Q2 in my. It's very, very late this year doing this. It is still comfortable. There we go. To decide what to do. Weather makes Florida best in the summer, but at the same least one trip where you can just. And our family infamous trip that I talked about that went terribly to Amelia Island, trip to Amelia Island where we rent. And honestly, I could see myself trying. It was excellent. Something special about family because they like create deep groups. I don't know if you have any, but my family, no offense to Vermonters or New Hampshire, they seemed very similar. This would typically have a condo. The birds who lived in, like, not far from where I live, like, be up north during the drive from our outside of Philadelphia, like 8-10 hours, like into the mountains, like probably at least 10 times. I can remember the stuff we brought in. They almost always brought this. My parents were too frugal and too healthy to allow us to eat away. So those trips, and I family on a version of that trip. So it created some really nice. Reason for that was the repetition and over again until it became like a reminiscence. So yeah, I'm trying to figure our family. I guess maybe that will be place, but
yeah, I road trip when I lived in 12 years of my life, and its extended family was mostly. So we would make a road trip, head up and stay with relatives there in Michigan. So I have various memories of seeing their houses, dad's side of the family, and then drive. It was about what we had to Ocean Grove for a week every summer. Camps were canceled. We actually wound up there, which was it's probably more time than occasionally we get the thought of like, oh, the summer at the beach. It's a sort of I know they get the beach out there, but it's like the only way childcare comes with you and only work from home or otherwise take on all the kids as mom. It just doesn't. I don't know.
With no camps or.
No, I just don't think it sounds slightly older. But they're not that the beach, but they like it more. The same house a couple of times that we have rented it, I think, or maybe even the 5th time we've rented it. It's on the beach. We can go out and get there for all of us, but to book it the year before. And I think they're pretty much booked up for the summer now in terms of repeat customers. A lot of places like that. Yeah, we're going on this trip because he took the kids. He is in charge of earlier in the summer. And that is, he went things, like couldn't wear out west. And so he's done a lot of work on this, but it's done in like March than work when it's done in October because all the ranch takes 7 people if it's a small. So they're booked up for the whole summer. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you could let's just day 3 and we can work around it. But see what we wind up doing. I'm sure
just make it a surprise where he doesn't tell you where it is until like the day before.
Well, I have certain requirements. I mean, I don't think these are ridiculous requirements, but if we're all going, I want a direct flight. And I like to know where I'm sleeping. Like, okay. Yes.
Okay.
That we're not going to get there and be like, oh, okay, let's see where we should stay. I want to know. Oh, you think so?
Well, listeners, if you have ever taken a trip with more than 4 children without securing lodging, we would like to hear about it.
I'm sure there's more a P on the, might find that exciting. I would find that probably. But yes, to hear what, people do if they do the same thing. Gaps, this is always something that, because many people realize, like, whatever they have going on it's not going to work for the summer. So, I mean,
for us, it's not a big deal, correct? But yeah, I have so many friends for which this is like a huge headache every single year. And it's kind of frustrating that most camps leave like a little gap between the end of school and the beginning. Sure that is when you were going. Yes, strategically, that's probably try to travel during those little some like kind of dead zone available.
Yeah, that gap between school, figuring out the extra hours. So again, a lot of places do before care and after care, and that's great. And I would say car lines are kind of, some do, but in which case, somebody's got to go. And again, if you are off, that's something to think about. It might before care. So the car line will probably, like, even if you don't between 8 and 9, worth it.
Gives you more flexibility to use it other days. You usually have a policy where you can drive along those, which I think a lot of a nice strategy because you could do that thought experiment, which will avoid this car line.
Of course, you can always hire somebody to help you that sitter who might help with making the summer childcare perspective. So even if you're school aged, but they are not care for themselves or, can't, that's another thing entirely. You could even have a situation where they go 9 to 3 to camp, but somebody picking them up at still getting the equivalent in that time in your schedule.
And it is cool when you incur, I don't know how many you still do hours during the summer or some Fridays during the summer, or it's like a shorter, whatever reason.
Yeah, it's kind of summer Fridays, and so people had the whole thing for 4 hours. Sort of ridiculous, persisted into 10 years where every bit of communication tech in existence,
yeah, work from home
Fridays would have been much, but until 20 heads around that idea. Let's see.
Yeah,
we could have
don't
some fun
forget
in this.
we not talked about. We talked about our family adventure selves. So in my opinion, no one is too old to want to have some seasonal fun, which is why Laura's lists are always such a hit. And such a different rhythms. I don't know, have some projects or things that I'm in during the summer, like a summer reading list. She reads. I always love a reading guide, and I've almost sung by just picking a bunch of her, bringing them to various. You could do movies set in summer. There's a whole number of those. Day trips that you want to take. Favorite concepts that's viral on Instagram is podcast came up with Wednesdays. And her kids, she was nice, out to various locations, extremely hot, and they need some summer, and they would get a different cold treat every Wednesday. And I just kind of love that concept. I'm sure my kids.
It might be cold treat Tuesday, Saturday. I'm thinking of that one hashtag. I'm very curious.
I think they do, but these outings. So they weren't a carton out of the freezer. Japanese soft ice toppings. And she came up with a new place every time. I think probably in South Florida, a lot of different venues for
yeah.
So to just Wednesdays, but that was a fun idea. And do some kind of take turns hosting. Once we move, so it's so silly that I'm move because I'm pretty sure I could start it now. But anyway, figure out a summer barbecue.
Ooh, that sounds fun. Once you're in your new location. And I love that you're going to be entirely
all east, and it's going to be
all new. Well, yes, sadly, no matter where you put us. List every summer, probably. At least now, I don't think, but I have done it and I tend to do it. And the big pieces tend to be mapped out but within that, these are special things, big adventure, little adventure each week. So it tends to wind up picking now that hiking or biking. Already have concert tickets for going to see Mary Chapin Carpenter. It's awesome. It's right when it opened. 4 of them actually. So we'll see which one will be coming along, or I don't know, maybe somebody else. Who knows? But yeah, it just would make summer. And at this point, there are certain things I've done. Every park at some point just winds up feeling like a good one, but I have to. And when I do, then much better. Some fun stuff in the summer. And one thing I also done the mommy day to sort of look at the time. You do have some sort of other child. Can be times when one child, right? And each kid can be lighter, or if they have a half camp. And then if you have some flexibility, be able to take off or a half day off with the kid who you need to put your kids in 8 to 5 camp during the summer childcare. Do that, but then you could pull a kid out and go do something special to each of your kids and spend some one-on-one time.
Extremely excited about her 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Now that that is such kids haven't had a whole lot of
interesting. It is such a South Florida thing. Who's Jewish, their culture for whatever reason. Sleepaway camp, almost weird. At least try it for your kids and communities. So we're just a nephew have gone for many camp, and Genevieve's actually, and I think one time with her that's more just than her friend.
Oh, I think that's really cool. Amazing experience for your older. More of my kids were interested in that. I always loved going to camp. I liked doing the outdoor camp. I loved for 3 years. Summer jobs.
I was a camp counselor for many. I went to the Episcopal Academy 7 or so on after I aged out of being a counselor there. And I had the 5 years. So much fun for me. We had one process and I was like, oh my God. And actually one of my BBs back then, she had glowing and stuff. So I am where I am today. That job. It paid nothing basically, but it was so much fun.
Well, it was more of a summer experience, I guess, because it
was hard work though. Hard work. You're herding 5-year-olds for
That's
8
true.
hours a day. You were sweaty but it was also you were friends with your fellow co-counselors, and it was the 90s, so everything was cool. Not
everything was cool in the 90s. That's okay.
I remember I wasn't allowed to go to Lollapalooza, whereas some of my co-counselors were all going. My parents were like, yeah, no.
Well, that sounds
What
fun.
was your summer job?
Oh boy, I had some some pretty classic ones. One summer, I worked at Fazoli's Italian restaurant. If any of our listeners are in the Midwest, I think is where that chain is. It's an Italian restaurant, Italian fast food. That was an experience. I came home smelling like garlic butter every night from the free breadsticks you get with every order. I was dealing with a lot of breadsticks in the course of my time at Fazoli's Italian restaurant. Another summer, I worked at Osco Drugstore, which is another one of the, chains similar to CVS or Rite Aid, which I don't know, again, if it's in the Midwest more than others, but there was an Osco at the mall. And so I worked there. And also quite an experience, retail, ringing people's stuff up and,
No, I did that too. It just wasn't a summer job. That was my video store job.
Your video store job.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Well, takes all kinds of things to, and then, college, at least I did internships, working at newspapers and magazines and things like that. So it was good to go from Fazoli's to the internships. I appreciated the internships a lot more, as long as they were paid. That's good. No unpaid internships. Not a fan of those. Well, anyway, let's get to the question part. So I will read this because Sarah was somewhat flabbergasted at this question.
This is an introvert.
This is an introvert extrovert. We talk about the J versus P. This is a total I versus E question here. So this listener is a mom of 2 children who are ages 4 and 8 months, so very much in the weeds with the little ones. She is a director of development at a nonprofit. So she is doing a lot of fundraising and does this as a volunteer type thing for some other places too. So the nature of her job means she has to take on a lot of forward-facing relationships and responsibilities like presentations, donor meetings, events. And in her free time, she says, I am a total homebody with my husband and my kids. She says she's thrived during the pandemic, staying connected with friends and acquaintances because, when something reminds her of a person, she will text them, she DMs them, she calls them during her commute to catch up. The issue, she has noticed that her friends always say at the end of these conversations, let's get together. We should do lunch. We should meet for happy hour. And she says, to be honest, I have enjoyed having the scapegoat of safety during the pandemic. But as COVID trends down, this will limit how long she can use this excuse. She says, why can't I check in, have a conversation, and wrap it up without the pressure of needing to make plans? I love my friends, she says, but I just want to go home, be a family, and sleep. If she loves her friends but doesn't want to see them, is that terrible?
I have at least one friend who can probably identify with this, but I have a harder time. And I still have a very human-facing job most of the time, so you can't say I'm not interacting with people all day because I pretty much am. I will say, I wonder if this could be like, just a little bit of like overwhelmed during this very busy period of your life. Like when you have an 8-month-old and you're still breastfeeding and like leaving them behind can be like a calculation of like, when do I feed them, blah, blah, blah. Like it can be really tiring. And maybe you're just really tired right now. So I give you grace if this is just like the period of where you are. And the other thing I will say is that just because people say we should get together doesn't mean they have the capabilities to actually like move forward on doing that. I mean, I get frustrated because I feel like I tend to be the one making a lot of plans because most people are not like ready to get out their calendar and send an invite or whatever. So I don't think you have to be as fearful as you sound like you are that people who say that actually mean it and are going to hold you to it. So I guess I will just say like, be thankful that most people tend to be a little flakier and might just be saying that to like, make you realize that they would be open to getting together with you if, that happened to happen. But I also was like, I was kind of like, but I can't, I don't get it. Like, cause I was so eager to see people socially after the pandemic that it is hard for me to entirely wrap my mind around it.
This idea of having friends and not wanting to see them. No, it's, she could totally be like, yeah, let's get together and then just leave it at that. Like if you don't take the step to do it, like the odds that it happens are relatively low. But I sort of more get this because if you are like a hardcore introvert and your job absolutely requires you to be on, like it is hard. Like it is taking a ton of energy. And I tend not to be in many of those situations, but certainly after, I've been to conferences and done like a lot of speaking and interacting with people, I'd be like this. I once did this bizarre thing where I agreed to like be pitched by like 30 companies on their products or whatever as part of when I was doing more like business journalism. And having groups of 2 to 3 people come up to me every 2 minutes, like for an hour, at the end of it, I was just like in a puddle on the floor. Whereas if you think of someone like the classic extroversion, someone like Bill Clinton thinks that's the most exciting thing ever, right? Like it's just like, woohoo, more people. I get to meet another 2, 3 people. This is great. Whereas I was just like, no, I want to slink out of here and go hide in the bathroom. And it's not that I'm shy. Like I'm not shy at all. It's just like you react differently to the in-person interaction. But that said, I would suggest that our listener possibly view some in-person friendly interaction as a bit like exercise. Like whether you like it or not, it's important to do at least a little bit in order to get the benefits to your life that come from it. So, could you do something once or twice a month, right? Like we're not talking every week having 3 things on the calendar. Like, wouldn't that be great if we all were doing that? But no, just like once or twice a month, could you do something? I mean, it could even be doing something you're already doing. Like, do you run? Like, why don't you run with a friend, right? Like, and that could be a way to maintain a relationship, but not have it take any more time away from home than you were already spending, presumably away from home. So 1 to 2 times a month. So it's not always a thing. And you might also try to schedule some of these when you are kind of already in world-facing mode. So I get that once you come home, you don't want to go back out again. But like you could meet a friend for lunch because you're still in that universe. And like maybe you're supposed to be meeting donors for lunch most of the time, but like maybe once a month, again, you can meet a friend for lunch and that could fit in with there. Or leaving work at 4:00 to go do a drink. And, you're still in sort of forward-facing mode, or the drink between the office and the event you have to go to as part of your fundraising. I would also just note that, like, relationships are good, and some people really need that in-person time, and some of your friends may have that need. And if they have that need, you want to help them with that, right? Like it's not all about you. Like you may not have that in-person need, but some of your friends may have that. And part of just being a generous, good friend is helping other people meet their needs as well. So I would encourage you to sort of think about that a little bit. And hey, maybe some of your friends know people who are going to like donate to your, nonprofit that you're doing development for. So it's just, it's all part of meeting more people, bring them into the fold. All right, Sarah, love of the week. What do you have for this week?
I have a two-pronged. Okay. My love of the week is from my childhood vacations, Polly's Pancake Parlor in New Hampshire, because I have such strong memories of it. We went every single year, and I am trying to figure out how I can get my family to go stay somewhere near that. So if you have ever been there, you will know what I'm talking about. It's awesome.
Good pancakes.
Second of all, my kids were begging for like some kind of pancake option for breakfast. And so I bought a giant thing of Kodiak pancake mix at Costco at Annabella's suggestion, which she had totally learned about from some YouTube ad, which is kind of funny. But anyway, it was extremely easy and they were very happy today. So I'll give that my love of the week.
Excellent. Well, my love of the week is that I am still using my camp credits from 2020. So in one camp in particular, we wound up getting a 20% bonus by not asking for a refund. So basically, if we agreed to lend the camp the money for the year, they would pay you 20% interest. And I was a little annoyed at the time because I felt like they could have run the camp. They could have opened. It was, anyway, that's a long story. But I have now been riding that wave for 2 summers now because like 2020, I was sending a lot of kids to that camp for a couple of weeks, and fewer kids have been interested. Like some of them have aged out of it now. But, so I did a couple weeks in 2021, totally comped. A couple weeks in 2022, totally comped. I think I'm out of it now. But yeah, I rode that train for a while. All right. Well, this has been Best of Both Worlds. We've been talking about planning your summer, reminiscing about some fun summer stuff as well. We would love to hear your summer memories. You can always email us, post on our blogs, come join us on our Patreon community. We love that as well. We will be back next week with more on making work and life fit together.
Thanks for listening. You can find me, Sarah, at theshoebox.com or at @the_shoebox on Instagram.
And you can find me, Laura, at lauravanderkam.com. This has been the Best of Both Worlds podcast. Please join us next time for more on making work and life work together.